Welcome to today's edition of Tech Tuesday by Full Sail University. Today's discussion is VR, AR, and MR, the technologies that are extending our reality. I am Luis Garcia, Vice President of Emerging Technologies at Full Sail University, and we have a great panel today of Full Sail graduates. Welcome everyone. First, we have Mr. Chance Glasco. He's a 2012 Hall of Fame inductee for Full Sail. He's currently doing a lot of consulting in VR and games, has an extensive experience in games, being one of the original members of Infinity War and Call of Duty. Also co-founded a VR company called Doghead Simulations. Second, we have Caris Frazier-Baker. She is a technical artist with Walter P. Moore, which is a global architectural firm. And she's also have had extensive experience in the indie gaming world as well, having released many games on her own. And lastly, we also have Mitchell Hartwell, which is a solutions architect at Holovis. It's a VR and AR company. And Mrs. Hartwell had also worked extensively in VR and AR and MR, and not only with Holovis, but also with companies like Boeing, and here in Orlando with CECO, the Center for Education. So I'm going to call each of your names and allow you to give some words for introduction. So I'm going to start with you, Chance. Where are you right now, and what are you currently working on, Chance?
I'm actually also in Orlando right now, and Baldwin just moved to a new apartment, so it's very empty. Therefore, I put my capybara in the background, so you just see the boring, empty room. I am currently I'm consulting full-time now for games and virtual reality. My main client right now, I started working with Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. They're a gigantic international global think tank formed after World War II to help kind of solidify European and U.S. relations, and now they solve issues from energy to mass migration to all kinds of things affecting the world, climate-related issues. And so I'm working with a particular branch of theirs, the Adrian Arch Rockefeller Climate Resilience Center, which is focused on climate resilience issues. So they've brought me on to focus on everything from mass migration to human trafficking to global warming to sea level rise, and how can we address issues like this using games. So that's mostly what I'm doing right now, along with some miscellaneous consulting. So
thank you so much, Chance. I'm going with you now, Caris. Where are you right now, and what are you currently working on, Caris?
Thanks, Luis. I'm currently in Orlando. Our office, our Orlando office in downtown Orlando is where we usually work, but of course we're not working directly from that office now. Walter P. Moore is like you said, a global structural engineering firm. We work on everything from skyscrapers to parking garages to large entertainment projects that you might be familiar with here in Orlando. And some of those things that we work on, we use virtual reality to assist with the development of those projects and for the communication between the different vendors on those larger projects. Even if they are smaller, like a parking garage, the approach is the same. So I'm a member of the virtual reality studio here in Orlando for Walter P. Moore, and we develop and design the software that the engineers use globally to build those projects internationally. So it's a lot of fun. We're currently working on not only migrating our virtual reality systems into an at-home version, so to accommodate the current situation that we're in and adapt, but we're also continuing the development of our 2020 plan for the future of our product and how we're going to be advancing it and evolving it from what it was into what it will be. And I'm really excited about that, and we're getting closer to our final iteration of those products. I'm really happy.
That's super cool, Caris. Thank you for sharing. And now we have Mitchell. And where are you right now? What are you currently working on, Mitchell?
Hey, Luis, thanks. Right now, I'm actually in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went from Orlando, and then I'm currently working on a project that's happening in Japan. So I was living there for 8 months before COVID happened and sent me back here. I'm stationed back in my hometown until I can get moving on to my next project in Hollywood. As far as what I'm actually working on, I am working on a project in the amusement park industry, and that's about all I can say.
Yes, we have many times panelists that can't go quite talk into detail, but
Yeah.
but we'll try to share as much as we can. Thank you everyone for an introduction. And for those that are joining us online, we're gonna go over some questions for the first half of our hour. And then as you go along, please feel free to send questions over the comments in Facebook, and our team will feed those to us. And in the second half of our hour, we're going to be addressing those. So let's dive right in, shall we? So I am much older than all of you, and so my first encounter with virtual reality with VR was when I was a student at Fulton in 1996. And back then, believe it or not, we had a virtual reality course within our digital media program, and it required a supercomputer the size of a fridge. That's called an SGI Onyx with an infinite reality engine, and we had huge goggles for the immersion and gloves for the hand tracking, which use magnetic fields, which is different technology back then, and it looked like a video game from the 80s, and it couldn't detect collisions, so you went through walls and all that kind of stuff. And so we have come a long way in 25 years. Now, much more can be done with something like Oculus Quest, which is fully contained in the device. So that we can start this conversation, I wanted to ask you, for you in the panel, what was your first experience with VR? I'll start with Chance. He's probably the oldest in the group anyway.
What are you trying to say? I'll be 40 in October, so
There you
the
are.
big 40. Yeah, I know I had some kind of experience when I was a kid that I can barely remember because it was so non-memorable. On one of those 90s machines, I believe. But the first one I really truly recall is like, oh, this is actually functioning VR. I can see it going somewhere. Would be the Oculus DK1, the first development kit for the Oculus. And I was working on, I think I was either on, I think it was Modern Warfare 3 I was working on, and I went into Carlos Pineda's office, who's now a designer at Respawn, Apex Legends, and he had gotten the kit, and I was like, oh, cool, I heard about these. I heard that VR, it's actually decent. And then I put it on, and I was like, it was pixelated, but it's like I felt kind of there, like I felt the sense of actually being in another place. Not incredibly strong, but strong enough where I was like, well, this is an early version. What's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, and so that was just the classic Tuscany level, which was kind of like the tech demo for the Oculus kit. Just a single environment in Italy, not very impressive by today's standards, but I felt a sense of presence, and there wasn't even tracking. It was just 3 DOFs, so you could rotate your head, but if you moved your head, nothing happened. But yeah, I was like, okay, I think we finally got to the point where VR is interesting and it's cheap enough where people will start adopting it. And so I quit Infinity Ward, maybe a year and a half after that or so. But the whole time, that period, I was like, I definitely want to work in the VR space, if I'm not working on a Call of Duty. And I try to convince them to do a Call of Duty in VR.
Wow.
And I'm sure will happen eventually, but I think at the time it was just too early.
That would be super awesome.
Yeah.
Mitchell, what was your first experience with VR?
Man, I actually remember. It's funny you talking about you being in school in 1996. I wasn't even born yet. But my first experience with VR, I remember it vividly. I was at Disney Quest in at the time was Downtown Disney, they had an Aladdin attraction or a game or whatever you want to call it, where they had these like submarine periscopes that you had to pull down, and they had handles, and you looked through, and you could look around, and it was like you were riding on a magic carpet or whatever. That was just like blew my mind. I don't even know how old I was. Definitely, it was probably about 7 or so. It was absolutely mind blowing.
That's awesome. I remember Disney Quest.
Yeah.
I remember when they opened Disney Quest.
Yeah.
Caris, how about you? What was your first experience in VR?
Oh, now that you mention it, Mitchell, I think I also in Disney Quest experienced those virtual roller coasters, which, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first, but I never really thought about it like that. But I had a friend that invited me over their home to try out the Vive, maybe like 2016 or so. And I had my first experience with Tilt Brush, and that was mind blowing for me. It was very inspiring. I was thinking, like, as an artist, I was like, what else can I do? Like, this is incredible. How is this going to evolve? Like, if this is where it is now, like, what is this going to look like in 5-10 years? So that was really cool. And I also had an experience with Tilt Brush at Full Sail Live. They set it up for some of the faculty, and I enjoyed trying it out there. So that was something that was it made a big impression on me, because I only thought about, like, well, what else then? Like, what is this going to do? So I think we've all kind of had that moment.
Thank you so much, Caris. So that's a nice way to set up the conversation. Today we are actually talking about extended reality technologies, which include virtual reality, we just had a little conversation about, which is full immersion. You get your goggles and you can't see anywhere, and it's perhaps the most famous of all the realities. And then we have augmented reality, or AR, which is what you have usually in your phone, where you're pointing at something with the screen of your phone, and then the screen adds elements that to the image that you're seeing. And then there's a third one called mixed reality, which is the ability to project images directly to your eyes as they mix with reality. So we're going to talk today about all three of them, and the industry have called this collection of technologies extended reality. But it's a name that is usually known more within the industry and not for the general public. So we'll start with virtual reality. We'll spend a little bit more in there, and it's been, we can tell, around for many years. Although I think that every year we're talking about that this is a year that's going to get mass adoption in the consumer market, and it quite doesn't happen just yet. But we see a lot of great applications in training. For example, here at Full Sail, we co-developed an application with Avon Health, and where we can to train nurses on how to use the very complicated machine that dispenses medicines for patients in the hospital. These are very expensive, complicated. We can't really replicate them everywhere. And so VR represents a really great way to replicate the environment and gamify the experience to train nurses. And have gotten very good acceptance. And but there's always these questions of what are the real applications? What's the killer app for VR? And that's what I like to start asking you guys. What is the application of VR that you find the most promising? I'll start with you, Caris.
Thank you. I'm really excited about the application of medical applications, like you were mentioning, but not just for training, for pain relief. I believe a few years ago was actually FDA approved for pain relief, and putting not only like people who are in temporary pain, but people in chronic pain situations into virtual reality showed significant improvement of their pain symptoms. And I think that's very promising. A lot of patients that didn't respond to other forms of relief responded well to the virtual reality, whether it's distracting them from their pain or what have you. The point is that they're getting real results, and especially in a situation where in an opioid epidemic, I think that that's very valuable.
Thank you, Caris. I'll go with you, Mitchell. What is the application of VR that you find the most promising?
Yeah, so VR is interesting. I would say the experience with VR as a product that I've known so far has been with training, pretty much doing exactly like you said with the equipment, where you take things that are expensive or otherwise hard to access, and you use the power of virtual reality and its power to put you in places that you aren't, and and allow that to kind of circumvent these very unique problems. So that's been my experience with it professionally. But I think the thing about VR that makes me the most excited is just the simple fact that no matter where you are, you can put yourself somewhere with other people and be present with other people. And I'm sure Chance has plenty to say about that in particular. But just the fact like things like VR chat exist is just so incredible to see, and just seeing people interact with people that they might not ever meet in their lifetime if this technology didn't exist. The fact that you have the ability to meet in a quote unquote public space that you don't need an invitation to, or you don't need any sort of permission to be there, but you can just interact with people that have totally different mindsets from you, maybe even speak a different language than you do. That in itself just is very inspiring, and to me is very promising to kind of making the world a more understanding place.
No, thank you so much, Mitchell. That's great. So let's go ahead with Chance. And
Yeah,
what is the application that you find the most promising for VR?
I'm going to echo the social aspect. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are very promising to me, and I can't really choose one, but I'd say most of them relate to the social aspect of VR, whether it's a social app or a game. The ability to co-locate two people in the same space. I mean, using social VR is the closest we can get to meeting people face to face right now. It's more natural and more realistic than, say, doing video conference, which classically has been the most realistic way to meet people up until now. Also related in kind of the health field, I did a study with an anti-human trafficking nonprofit and a state attorney down in Miami, using Rumi, which was the software of my old company, and we took victims of human trafficking and put them in VR with therapists, people they didn't know, therapists they didn't know, and every single one of them opened up with their therapist sooner about a lot of the issues that they had gone through. And so we had really, really good results. Just people feel a lot more free in VR to be social. There's a study that Facebook did that showed that introverts are actually more extroverted in VR. And in the study, there was, I think, 40 extroverts, 40 introverts. They showed that the introverts were more extroverted in VR than the extroverts. And I think that that's probably more of a sample size issue. If we did a bigger sample, we'd probably see that it kind of evens out. Everyone's close to the same. But people just feel more open socializing. And this is going to take effect in games too. Imagine, if say Blizzard made a like WoW VR, right? And everyone's in VR. There's going to be people that are playing that game that aren't even really fighting, killing dragons. They're going to be inside their shop mixing potions by hand, talking to customers, just socializing. Which is going to kind of broaden the idea of what a game is. It's going to be its own metaverse. When we add in the social aspects of VR with the gaming aspects of VR, it's going to be incredible.
Thank you so much, Dan. Those are really good experiences that you shared in different ways that now people are using VR. So let's go into augmented reality, or AR. And this is perhaps the most adopted of the three technologies, because it doesn't require expensive gear. Everybody has a smartphone. And a few years ago, Pokemon Go really opened that door where people were running around and finding the Pokemons all around, and but there are quite a lot of more interesting examples than that, and because it's in people's smartphones, people really believe that this is the gateway to mass adoption. But what do you think is the most interesting application of AR that you all have worked or seen? I'll start with you, Mitchell.
Yeah, so AR is the fun one, right? It's the one that a lot of people get to use on a daily basis because, like you said, it doesn't require expensive equipment or things to be set up in advance. So I think some of the more fun things that I've seen with AR are like magic mirrors, where you go to maybe a salon or something, and you can see different haircuts on yourself, or if you're buying makeup, you can try on the makeup without having to actually put it on. Those sorts of things are just super fun to see. But even just the simple things like Snapchat and I don't use enough social media. I'm sure Instagram has has AR filters that you can put on. Even that sort of stuff is just great to me. But also in things like architecture or interior design, where you can put pieces of furniture around. I'm sorry, Caris, if I'm stealing your answers, but just being able to put like a couch somewhere and see it in real space and move around it and see what it looks like in the space you are, or change the color of your walls. With AR, I find all the quote unquote simple stuff to be the most interesting to me. Things that change minor details.
Thank you, Mitchell. We're gonna go to Chance so Caris can think of new answers. And so, Chance, what is the most interesting application of AR that you have worked or seen? You are mute right now, Chance.
I was gonna say he stole my answers too. I was gonna say really.
Sorry.
Here's the thing: is about the thing. I'm not following AR too closely until we have an AR device that makes sense to me, and until if I have to do this, then the only thing that I like in AR is simple tools that make sense for me. I pull it out and use it and not have it. But a lot of the cool AR stuff, it's like I kind of need it passively on. I need glasses or something for me to really think that this is going to catch on. So it's going to be all the tool uses. It's going to be hey, let me see if this couch fits in my living room, because you just check and you put it away and you're done. Or let me measure the distance of this, using my phone, or, some of the cool little game features. So there honestly just hasn't been anything in AR that's really gotten me super excited yet. And I don't think it's necessarily the application's fault, that just more of the hardware isn't there yet. Like we have consumer ready VR that, yeah, we want to be better, we can improve, but there really is no consumer AR hardware right now. So yeah.
All right, so let's see. I think Carrie's taking notes now and trying to come up with stuff. Carrie's, but I'm sure you have plenty of great examples anyway. So please share them with us. What are the interesting application of AR that you have seen or worked on?
So we're working on some augmented reality applications that I can't disclose, but that's what I want to say. I think that I should say, what? Okay, never mind. I'm deleting that. I think it's important to note what Chance said about there not being any consumer grade hardware that's ready for the augmented reality experiences that we assume that we should have. So there's like a level of expectation that the experiences that we see in our head, now that we have all these crazy sci-fi realities, we're like, oh, of course we can do that. Well, when you actually use it for that application, when you actually try to develop for that thing, you realize the hardware isn't ready. We can't deploy this to the public because of XYZ reasons. It's not going to be a good experience. So some of the things that I have seen that work well are a little bit less than what we would have wanted, but they work very well. there are some examples for what they are. They are very good. We partner with a company called Visual Vocal that uses fiducial stickers in a physical construction environment. You're able to pull out your cell phone and you can record your voice and you can draw on the screen and take a 360 photo. You can then take that 360 photo and you can transfer it around. You can replay that voice recording, those drawings that you made. So it's a simple application that has a lot of value and provides a lot of value on a regular basis to our clients. So it's important to note that we already have a return on investment on some of the things that we've actively been using in not only the structural engineering space, but also, you know, that extends into the electricians, the plumbers, the architects, and everybody else who touches a large project benefits from improved communication with simple pieces of software, simple applications that utilize augmented reality.
Thank you so much, Caris.
That actually made me think of one more thing, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, go for it.
So one of the things that actually Apple made with their iPads is that you are now able to LiDAR scan with iPads or something along those lines. I don't know what version of the iPad it is. I don't know if it's even out yet, but I've just seen videos of it on LinkedIn and stuff, where you can hold up your iPad and you can scan a room, and it can give you a 3D view of sort of where things are in your room. And the fact that technology is now going into something as commercially used as an iPad is promising.
Well, I think that Apple deserves a whole line of questioning, and because they have invested so much and are now going into having their own microprocessor. I think that they're definitely going much deeper into what it can be. But before we go to that, and we have already questions coming in, and we're approaching the bottom of the hour. Let's talk about mixed reality, and this is probably the least known of the three technologies, and it's because it requires very expensive, even more expensive glasses than the goggles for VR, and because these glasses have a lot of technology in them. They have cameras, and they have earphones, and they have projectors, and they have screens, and there are very few vendors that create them. Microsoft has something called HoloLens, which they are in the second version now. There's a Florida-based company called Magic Leap, which held a lot of promise, but it's been difficult for them to capture market fast enough. And there's a company out of China called Enreal that I think out of the three perhaps has a very interesting technology. And we have Google Glass from a long time ago that really went nowhere. But for me, it's the most promising of the three because it promises to be the least invasive. If you can get glasses like the ones I'm wearing right now to do mixed reality, then you just can incorporate it into normal life without having to really, like Chance said, put something up or get this whole bulky goggles thing on. So for you, and I'll start with you, Mitchell, because you said you were working in mixed reality. Where do you see mixed reality going?
Yeah, so mixed reality is the tricky one, right? Because a lot of people have different definitions of what mixed reality actually is. And in my world, mixed reality is taking things that physically exist in the real world and kind of seamlessly integrating them into things that exist in a virtual world, whether it's AR or VR or projection or some other sort of thing. So like me being in the amusement park industry, I see things, if you've gone to Universal, kind of the joke is how on every 4D attraction, they just like spray you with water or something like that. That sort of stuff. Now, I wouldn't really say water is a mixed reality, but if you imagine that sort of effect, but with technology and with a virtual world. That's more along the lines of how I view mixed reality and kind of where I see things going. Because the nature of mixed reality, it becomes a little gimmicky or hard to set up because of that physical aspect. A lot of places don't have physical things set up. Like I would even go as far as to say the void, where they have physical things that you can touch even though you're in virtual reality. I would go as far as to say is that is mixed reality. And so the way I see mixed reality, it's a very currently entertainment based XR, and I see a lot of improvement coming up in that entertainment aspect. But I would love to see things like training, where currently virtual reality trainers, you're holding controllers and you're trying to do things that you would normally do without controllers. Like if you're a pilot, for example, you would normally be flipping switches and holding your controls with your hands. But we still have that limitation of VR where you have to be using controllers and you kind of lose the muscle memory aspect of it. So the way I would love to see MR is going is getting rid of controllers and using natural controllers and using things that you would use them normally to improve both training and entertainment and kind of the whole field in that way.
Thank you, Mitchell. It's very cool stuff that you're working on. Caris, for you, and I know you have strong feelings about this, where do you see MR going?
So the way that I see it, I personally don't work with a lot of MR, but until we have consumer grade augmented reality, it's not going to go anywhere further than, like Mitchell said, large scale experiences that are set up in a way that large groups of people pay tickets to do something. But I think that MR is a fuzzy term because it doesn't really have its place yet. The way that I would see it is like MR is the ability to switch from AR to VR. Well, like a set of consumer grade glasses that have a opacity setting, like a shutter, where you can go into. Like I've even seen concepts for hoodies that have the zipper part you'd be able to remove. Being able to occlude the physical environment and be in virtual environment and at will, and then being able to remove it and still be in AR. I think that has its place, but I don't think we're going to see that until we have consumer grade glasses that connect to cell phones, and that's widely accepted among the consumers.
That's very cool. Chance, how about you? Do you see a future for MR? Where do you see it going? Unmute.
Maybe I should just not mute myself. For me, I think the most exciting application of MR now and coming is what Mitchell said with a lot of the entertainment aspects. For instance, the Void, the ability to reach out and grab like a Star Wars blaster rifle and feel it in your hands. Now, like physical feedback is sort of the last frontier for VR. I don't see us figuring that out anytime soon, where you can just like in your own room, go into VR and touch everything that shows up. We're a ways away from that. So the way we get that is very specific instances, right? So you have to design a program or a game that matches that one physical set perfectly. And if the game changes or the environment changes, you have to physically change what's there, right? So that really only works for specific, instances, simulators, entertainment. So I would really like to see like take, I don't want to call it LARPing because that makes it seem lame, but you do like D&D in VR, which is kind of like LARPing with tech. I think that could be really cool. Having like physical sword battles if you're tracking the sword so that matches up with the characters. Foam, just like stuff like that. Nerd sandboxes.
That's super cool.
So I like how you fix your glasses after I said nerd. That's super cool.
Well, we all nerds here. So we have some great questions from our audience, and so let's start with some of those. We have from Yang Shui. I hope I'm saying her name properly. Uh, um, and since we have so many, I'm probably going to go with only one of you guys to answer this one, but there's enough for all of you guys to participate. So Yang's question is, could you share the learning path of coding, programming, for VR and AR, please? And I'm going to go to Mitchell for this one.
Yeah, sure thing. So the learning path for doing VR and AR with coding, obviously you have to start, and I would recommend this for any sort of technology. If you're looking to do software, you have to start with the basics of programming. You want to get a language that can teach you everything that you need to know to make good, robust code. So of course, I would recommend something like C++ to do that. But there's all sorts of programming languages. So just pick something that interests you, as long as it's teaching you how it really works. But once you get past that hump, or if you decide that you really don't care about programming itself, you just want to get into the fun aspects of it, there are lots of great kits that you can use. Unity is one of the best ones that I've seen for people that want to get a quick start into it. If you are looking to do AR, something like Vuforia, where you can just get a picture and almost it's incredible. It's almost like drag and drop, and it works. You set a picture and it lets you do AR just like that. The actual learning path for that, there's plenty of free tutorials online for Unity. So besides the actual programming aspect and doing that in school, I would say just find tutorials for something like Unity, or if there's another VR or AR tool that works very well for beginners, absolutely just hop on that.
Thank you, Mitchell. That's great. I have a question from Matthew. We're gonna have a chance answer this one. The question is, how do you feel about omnidirectional treadmills becoming mainstream? So I choose you because you talk about Call of Duty.
Yeah,
VR.
they're not going to become mainstream, at least at home. I don't know if you would say specific entertainment installations would be mainstream either, but yeah, they're not. What else do we have in our house that's big and heavy that is so specific? Not a lot of things. I would rather have one than a regular treadmill in my house for sure, but yeah, just most people don't want to have a gigantic device in their house like that, and that's just the reality. So we'll see it at maybe we'll see a bunch of malls, shopping malls turn into VR centers where we got a bunch of them lined up and we're all running around playing Onward or Fortnite VR or whatever comes out next, right? But yeah, until they find a way to do locomotion in a treadmill style and a device that people want to have in their home, it's not going to become mainstream.
Thank you. Caris, I have a question here from Adam, and he said, what do you think will be the biggest challenges for XR to overcome the progress? And he also says that he's a big fan of haptics, but they have to be comfortable.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about haptics in particular is that it's kind of like a 0 to 1 thing. You either feel them or you don't. There's not a lot of dimensionality in haptics. Like they're either on or they're off. And you can put as much variation in haptics, and you really don't get in much of a difference in the metrics that you're measuring in regard to like what matters. But that's a different thing. So they're cool though, I guess.
In terms of the challenges,
where do I see XR?
Yeah.
The major hurdle that I see in the adoption of it is the issues that we're having with pinning and drift with augmented reality. And until we overcome that, I don't think we're going to go much further. So a lot of the experiences that have been designed for augmented reality have been designed to overcome the issues and to hide the issues that we're having with pinning and drift with, so what I mean is, like, if you set something in an area, for instance, Mitchell was talking about a couch, Chance was talking about a couch. You put a couch in a room, you walk away, you come back, you expect that to be in the same spot. So that's not always the case at this current moment with the hardware that we have available. We're getting closer, and until that happens, we're just fighting with those problems. So, like, some of the other experiences I know of, they create like UFOs and goldfish and fish like floating in midair to avoid the issue of pinning digital content onto a physical environment.
Let's talk about the lack of hardware, and Chance was the first one to bring that up in regards specifically to AR, but hardware is really something that drives a lot of what we do. I mean, there's a question from Chris and Marie Vega. What is the reason for the lack of hardware? Is that lack of interest, or just the tech is not there yet? Go ahead, Chance.
Lack of hardware?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't agree that there's a lack of hardware. There's plenty of VR hardware out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if maybe lack of hardware adoption would be maybe a better thing to address. I think personally, I overestimated the public's ability to just not give a crap about minor VR discomforts, because holy moly, I'm in a new environment, right?
Right.
And so I underestimated how much people would care about, my hair or the weight of the headset and all this stuff. So I think when it comes to adoption, there's a few factors that need to be worked on. And price is always a factor, right? But every time the price comes down, we have newer technology that's back at the original price, right? But we still haven't really. I'd say we're pretty much about to hit that sweet spot as far as just like the quality that people kind of expect, kind of the introductory quality with, say, the Reverb Generation 2 or the Index, high frame rate, high res, no screen door effect. So I think it's just a matter of those newer headsets that are just coming out now, coming down to the, $200 price point or so, $200 to $300, and then the investment in games and software. I think that's the biggest lacking issue. It's not so much the hardware. It's more of just we need more investment in the software so people have something that makes it where they have to buy one. Like, I have to get this game or I have to get this application because it's so useful. So yeah, a mix of stuff getting cheaper, a little bit better, and more comfortable, and more software to get more hardware out there.
All right. So I have a question from Lauren Tubolsky. She's a UX designer, and I said, what do you think the future of UX design and AR, but I actually will extend to all XR will be? What is the future of UX design? I'll go to Mitchell for this one. You've created a lot of experiences.
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky question. So obviously UX it's not even comparable to on a computer or in an app. When you're talking about, XR versus being on a computer or something like that. But the problem is people have come to expect all of those sort of things that have become the standard on, your phone or your computer. So it's one of the major challenges that's coming up with XR at the moment, is how you create an experience that people feel comfortable using, because of course the whole point of AR, VR, or MR is to make things seamlessly integrate with either a virtual environment or the environment that you're in currently. So yeah, I don't know what I can say about what the UX is actually going to look like, but as far as the challenge or the direction that UX is going to go, is going to be using muscle memory, using visuals that people are familiar with. So like, red X's and back arrows and things like that, finding a way to integrate those sorts of things, and just making things feel very natural. So that sort of UX aspect is still going to have to be at play. People aren't going to be able to think about where certain options or certain progression is going to be. And while that is still the same challenge for UX, it's just going to be in a whole different way that people are going to have to figure out.
I think. Go ahead, Caris. Go ahead, please.
So what's really interesting about the way that we've been handling the more consumer grade user experience, like it's been forming, like there's no book about it. Of course, we're having to create the rules as we go. And as we've been moving through these past few years, there's been more rules and more like, because this person did this thing, they're now used to it. Therefore, that thing is now standard. And so that needs to be said about like the way that we've formed it for ourselves. But I think the way that it's going in the future is the rebirth of skeuomorphism. So you guys remember like the original iPhone, everything looked like a thing that you're familiar with. So you could turn dials to adjust sound, and you could have a little notepad that looks like an actual notepad so that it looks like the thing that it represents its real world counterpart. And I think that we've been doing that a lot. And I think that, skeuomorphism died when we started doing more like flat design with the more futuristic looking things, of course, relative to how modern it is. But as we're moving into the future, I think we're going more towards skeuomorphism again. And I think then that is going to develop into what we are comfortable with naturally only after we're comfortable with our real world counterpart in VR. So like, for instance, everyone is familiar with like Half-Life Alyx. That is so successful because things feel like you're in the actual space. You've got your controller, that's your gun. You're using it exactly as you would a gun. And then I think that from that, the next step forward is to evolve past it. And we don't know what that looks like yet. We're going to be developing it as it goes. It's going to be some level of diegetic, like in-world, contextual, like thematic art that we won't have our heads wrapped around right now.
That's very cool. We spoke earlier about Apple, like how it could, in my mind, Apple is one of those few companies that has been very successful in introducing new screens. And when we had the PC, they made the laptop very successful. Then when they made the iPhone and created a new category, they went into the watch. So they have a history of creating new screens and incorporating them into people's lives. And we all have been really waiting for what is it that they're going to do for extended reality. And because they're so good at creating devices that people adopt very easily. And Chance spoke earlier today about, how much he underestimated the small things of, how heavy the device is and how much people will want to get over those things quickly for their return. And Apple is a company that pays a lot of attention to those things. And I have visited Apple, and I tried my hardest to get them to talk about what is it that they're going to do. But we see a few signals, right? If you go visit there, they have their campus in augmented reality, the very physical model that then you with an iPad you can separate into different levels. About over 2 years ago, they were hiring 3D artists. They had over 600 open positions for 3D artists. I mean, Apple's not a content company per se, hiring that many 3D artists gotta tell you something. The earpods as a tremendous technology of wireless media, which everything starts with audio first, and then it moves to video and so on. And now going into their own processor. I think when you put all that together, you know that they're setting up the table for them to come big and into that. Do you think they can change the game? Do you think they can come in and actually be what the industry needed for consumers to adopt VR? I gotta go with you, Chance, as I see that you're kind of nodding your head.
Honestly, if you would have slapped an Apple logo on the Oculus Quest, that would have happened. I think we need Apple, not because they're going to have some technological breakthrough, which they might. They've got the money to make that happen, to buy up any tech companies that are coming out with new hot stuff. But I think it's just going to be like once Apple does something, there's a certain demographic of people that will only get on board because Apple did it, you know? So that's probably, I'd say close to half the population thinks this way. So
Somebody wants to add to that?
I was going to say Apple, less as a company, but more of a brand, is going to do these
yeah,
things.
yep.
Similar
Absolutely.
to the Alexa glasses that weren't really adopted. I think that if Apple had done the Alexa glasses, which was just a speaker on your face, I think that would have had more adoption, and we would have gotten closer to what we were all imagining with AR sooner. Which is fashion-forward glasses connected to your cell phone. That's
I actually liked the Bose AR audio glasses. I'm not sure if you
Oh,
saw
yeah, they
those. They,
discontinued them. That.
yeah, they look like you know, regular Ray-Bans. You didn't really tell, which is really the most important thing. If you can't get me glasses that look like, oh, those are like glasses, except they're a little weird looking. If people think that, then okay, you've already failed. I don't care what the technology is.
Yeah.
With VR, it's
I,
different because I don't mind looking silly, you know, for if I'm going to be transported to another universe, who cares what I look like in the other universe, right? So
So, all right, so we're getting to the end, and now, and there's a few questions that I always like to ask all panelists, and so I'll start with you, Mitchell. Um, what do you see in technology that gets you really excited about the future? And here you can go in general. We don't have to stay in XR. And this being Tech Tuesday, we always talk about in general about technology. What do you see in technology that gets you excited about the future?
Oh, that is a good question. You know, because technology is such a broad topic. I would say the thing about technology that drew my interest and keeps my interest is just the very nature of you know, technology and the people that create technology. It's because every time you run into a problem, that whether it's a new problem or a problem that people are always running into, you know, people start trying to come up with solutions, trying to come up with answers, and people will throw out things, you know, maybe as a joke, maybe not, something that might seem impossible. You know, they say, oh, you know, there's a I'll go back a while, like, oh, there's this big mountain here. If only we could just like drill through it and make a tunnel. You know, at the time, somebody might have laughed and said, oh, yeah, good one. We'll just drill right through it. And then, you know, flash forward however many years later, we have tunnels and roads that go right through mountains. And in that sort of aspect is just what drew my interest and what keeps my interest. Just trying to see where we're going to end up, you know, whether things like SpaceX, if we go traveling to other planets, something that seems impossible now might seem totally common in the future. Just that I will never stop loving.
That's great. So, Caris, how about you? What do you see in technology today that gets you really excited about the future?
So I think it's important to point out what this situation with, you know, lockdown, COVID, quarantine has done for virtual reality and the adoption in general. I've heard it said that this situation has increased the adoption rate by 10 years, or fast forwarded the adoption rate by 10 years. I don't know if that's accurate, but the point is that it's representing an observation that I think is true, not only in my own circle of friends, but also as I've seen in my company. The adoption rate of our VR software amongst our offices has increased with the use of the tools that we've provided to them, because the need is there. They can't go to the physical location to check out the as-built, and they need to see it in VR. I think that that's unique, and a unique ability for any technology to be able to get us through this period of time that's, you know, unprecedented, where we're in this crisis, where we're all disconnected from each other. Technology has allowed us to maintain some level of normalcy, to maintain our economy, to maintain our jobs, and I think that that needs to be celebrated, because it's really the technology that's allowed us to do that.
Thank you for mentioning that. That's very true. Chance, what do you see in technology today that gets you excited about the future? Chance? Oh, I
Uh-oh.
think that he went with the capybaras.
He replaced himself with a cardboard cutout.
That's right. All right, so we'll go to the next question, and we're just in closing now. And start with you, Mitchell. Uh, Lots of folks today excited about technology, excited about pursuing careers in technology. What would you tell somebody thinking about pursuing a career in technology? Is there any advice you'd like to give?
Yeah. Again, technology is such a broad topic. The first thing I would recommend is kind of finding what about technology gets you excited, or finding something to pair with technology. Because technology in itself, it's kind of hard to kind of contextualize, I guess, because technology exists everywhere. Everywhere you look, you have technology. So even somebody that I'm just trying to think of a job that's furthest away from technology. Even if you're a diehard farmer, you come from a line of farmers, you can still be very interested in technology and want to work on technology and still be a farmer. Like, that's the sort of thing about technology that's just so unique. You can do anything you want to. You can be in the restaurant industry. You can be in the I don't know, the car racing industry, whatever that's called, and still have a focus on technology. So I'd say the thing that I would recommend to somebody that is trying to get into the industry is figure out what excites you, because that's the thing that is so driving about technology. It's new, it's exciting, and it can be applied to anything. So you just have to answer those questions for yourself, and then your path will find its way before you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Misha. That's great. Caris, how about you? You said, what would you tell somebody that is thinking of pursuing a career in technology?
So very similar to what Mitchell said. I think it was a GDC talk at some point that said the 4 F's of game development, and of course that applies here. Failing fast and following the fun, which mirrors what you said about finding what makes you excited. But if you realize that you're going to be failing often, you chase the failure in order to learn faster, because you learn from your mistakes, climb those mistakes to get somewhere, chasing the feeling of fun, which is so hard to find. So once you found it, hold on to it, keep going straight, and whatever that means for you. But if you want more concrete answer, learn to program, whatever that might be for you. I was an artist first, I was a programmer second. So as a technical artist, that means I'm technically an artist, but I'm a programmer. And I think it's important to recognize that programming is accessible to all people, and you can learn to do it just like you learned anything else in your life, and not to be intimidated by it. So fail fast and follow the fun with that too. So find something that you like, something that you want to do, and use that as a carrot on a stick to accomplish learning a skill that you don't already have.
That's incredible advice. Thank you so much. And for all of you guys listening or seeing today, if you love technology, just like they say, another great reason to do it is because we have come a long way in the last 50 years of innovation. And today we get the very big chance of solve some of the world's more complex and more difficult problems because of the technology so advanced. So when I got into technology, I got to do websites, and that was great. Back then, it was the coolest thing, but we're not really saving the world with that. Today, you get to save the world if you go into technology, and that's a really cool thing. I want to thank Chance, who just wrote me and said that his internet went out, unfortunately. Thankfully, we had them for most of the hour. And want to thank Caris and Mitchell for joining us, and everyone for staying with us. And I want to invite everyone for our next edition of Tech Tuesday, which will happen 2 weeks from now. And it's going to be called Freelancing in Tech, a life as a remote tech worker, which most of us are, but we're going to be interviewing people that just do that. And that will be on August 25th. And thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.